Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, I'm Chris Stelly. I oversee Louisiana Entertainment. We're a division of Louisiana Economic Development. What does that mean? That means we're just here to create jobs for Louisiana residents. Quite simple, and to encourage the entertainment industries, which includes film, to come to our state, set up businesses, hire Louisiana residents, and keep our economy flowing. So I just provided a brief kind of overview of everything that we do. I'm an easygoing person, so stop me at any point in time if you have a question, happy to answer, and we'll just kind of keep it flowing. All right, so like I mentioned earlier, we have 4 distinct programs that are unique anywhere in the United States. We are after everything entertainment, because when we're talking with Disney's, Warner Brothers, Netflix's, we're talking to all of them, not just their feature or television divisions, but we're talking with Disney Theatrical, we're talking with Warner Brothers Digital, so that they can know that the state of Louisiana offers a very comprehensive, holistic approach to attracting all aspects of what these multimedia companies do on a daily basis. Our motion picture program is one of the most well-known around the world. I'm proud to say we probably rank in the top 5 production destinations globally. So we're not just competing within the United States, we're competing with other states, nations, Canada, you name it, we're competing globally. We have up to 40% on our tax credit. It's a 25% base. You get an additional 15% for hiring Louisiana residents. If it's content that's being created based upon a screenplay written by a Louisiana resident, you get an additional 10% on top of that 25% for 35%, because what we want to ultimately do is not only attract the outside productions, but encourage more indigenous filmmakers and provide what most emerging filmmakers need, is that access to capital. So you can come in and pitch yourself to an investor and say, I wrote this screenplay, it's Louisiana content, it's Louisiana created, and I can get you at least 35% back on the tax credit. You get an additional 5% for filming outside of the New Orleans metro statistical area through the generous cooperation with Trey and Lafayette and Carroll with the city of New Orleans. The governor in 2016, when he took office, really wanted to provide opportunities outside of the greater New Orleans area. New Orleans still gets, I think we have what, 15 or 16 projects? 18 projects in the city now and the surrounding area, Northshore included. But it's also very important to expand these industries outside of one geographical area so that we can get the support of everybody. And there's some great places to film throughout the state. Baton Rouge has National Treasure, which is a Disney project right now. Shreveport's starting to get some more and more activity. So the more that we can cooperate with all areas of the state, recognizing that the hub for our state is the city of New Orleans and the great work that they do here, but build off of that brand so that we can do more and provide more opportunity. Yes, ma'am.
What percentage of principal photography can be outside of New Orleans to get the 5%?
You have to base your production office outside of New Orleans, and at least 60% of your principal photography has to take place outside. So sometimes it's logistically challenging for smaller projects. You might as well just shoot it all outside so that you don't run into any major issues. We also have been instrumental in attracting video game development and software development to our state. So a lot of that activity is built off of the success of the film program that we adopted back in 2002. And we've also expanded our reach into sound recording and live performance. So we've been working with companies like Cirque du Soleil, who was here prominently before COVID shut down, and they're looking at coming back. So we have Cirque du Soleil that's really launched productions, traveling productions outside of pretty much all the major metropolitan areas of our state, Lake Charles, Bossier City, Lafayette, Baton Rouge, and New Orleans. So we have a great relationship with a company like Cirque du Soleil. The live industry is still taking a major, still showing a lot of impact as a result of COVID, but it's slowly coming back. I think we've got Billie Eilish that's going to start her world tour here in New Orleans. We've got, Elton John, who was going to originally launch his final farewell tour in 2020, I believe, out of New Orleans. He's looking at coming back in 2022 this year. So a lot of activity on that front. Excited about that. But we're going to focus mostly on film here. So again, this is kind of the nuts and bolts of what our program is. We offer a maximum of 40%. So however you combine the different categories and levels of the incentive, you can maximize it 40%. Simple math, $1 million you spend here, you get $400,000 back. How do you cash that? How do you monetize that? The credits are no longer transferable, meaning that you don't have to find a taxpayer. You go directly to the state and we'll cut you a check for 90% of the face value. If you got $1 million worth of credits, you get a check for $900,000. $90,000, sorry about that. Look.
What's that program again?
Look.
Can you repeat that?
I have a calculator at work, so I'm not good at doing this off the top.
Damn.
Not 10 million you get. So don't quote me on that. Back it up a little bit. But there is a 2% transfer fee that's due upon transfer of the credit, so you net out 88%. It's a lot more stable than having to play the market. The way the old program worked was you were at the whims of whatever the market would gather between, 85 and 88 cents is kind of where that market was. I saw somebody had a question? No? Okay. So just a little bit about the economic impact and how it's and why you may be seeing this sort of graph. In 2017, which is kind of the point of when we adopted this current incentive program, we had $342 million in total spending in the state that we certified that year. It's gone up to 2019, and you kind of see it trending down in 2020, and it's gone down a little bit more in 2021 because we're starting to pick up that COVID impact. So what COVID did was essentially push a lot of things down the road. So that 6 to 8 month gap that we experienced wasn't unique to Louisiana, but it was everywhere around the world. Production just stopped. And so we'll start seeing 2022 when 2021 is probably going to be a record year for production, but our numbers will trend down. Then you'll start to see that spike in 2022 and 2023 and beyond. Just some highlights of some of the things that we've done here. Leverage is back for another season. They were actually the first, yeah? Oh, you didn't know that?
I didn't mean to say that out loud.
Oh, secrets. Good, I'm giving away secrets. Leverage was actually, I want to say Carroll and Trey, they were the first major production back during COVID. They were the ones to test.
They were the first one
to start filming again in August, September of last year, in August of 2020, to come back with the safety protocols in place.
Yeah.
We got Claws, Queen Sugar that are wrapping up their runs. Your Honor, have we gotten word that they're going to be back for a second run at it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I thought, so Your Honor was going to be a limited, but they're going into a season 2. Secrets of Sulphur Springs, Cherish the Day, other great things that have been done in the state and primarily in the New Orleans area. Motion picture productions, again, in 2021 was at an all-time high. We expect that to be another breaking year. We're still wrapping up our numbers as far as that goes. 15 has just got debunked. When we put together this PowerPoint, we had 15 projects here throughout the state, and now that's been blown out the water already, so love it. We've got Interview with the Vampire, Kingswood, In with the Devil, Iron Mike, National Treasure, Killing It, Ultraviolet, and Black Scorpion. What's unique about these is that these are scripted episodic series. One of the things that we did in 2017 that was very forward-thinking, in my opinion, was focus on what we felt the trends of the industry were going. Feature films are fantastic. They're wonderful. We love them. They've been our bread and butter throughout time, but they're here for a limited time and then they leave. Scripted come back year after year, and the longer a series goes, the more money they spend in our state, and the more people they hire, the more long-term commitments they're making to cast and crew in our state. So as far as I can tell, we're still the only state that focuses on scripted episodics. How do we focus on scripted episodics? Well, there's a $20 million per project cap for your standard feature film. We offer $25 million per season for scripted episodics. So you get a little bit increase in the amount of credits that you can earn from the state. We will also give a series a 5-year super certification where we want to eliminate that decision-making process. When we were pre-2017 talking with studios and talking with television networks and Netflix, they were like, what's the biggest challenge? They're like, well, every time we go to renew a series, we got to decide where we want to shoot. So we just eliminated that altogether to say, hey, you don't even have to worry about the incentives because we're giving you that 5-year, guarantee if you do everything that you need to do in accordance with state law. So this has been another evolutionary step in what we have been able to do with the film incentive program. In 2017, we did 2 things that really, I think, has enabled us to do some really cool things. One is the career-based learning and training. Any project that wants to come into our state must provide we have an approved list on our website. They must provide things like, it could be a cash donation to a local nonprofit like the Cool Cooperative. It can be a cash donation to one of our universities. They could set up a speaking engagement with UNO, Loyola, Xavier, or any of our higher ed institutions. They can bring interns onto the set. So really giving back from the production for the credits that they get, they have to participate one way or the other. We have a lot of flexibility on what they can do, but it's really proven quite successful in my opinion. We also established this Entertainment Development Fund, which we were able to pass the rules in late 2020, and we've announced 7 or 8 endeavors, partnerships that we call them, with several organizations throughout the state. Our first announcement was with NOVAC and IATSE. We recognized that as COVID hit, that there was this massive backlog or massive buildup of content frustration where all the content had been consumed. There was nothing being produced, so there was a big gap. So we worked with NOVAC, which is the New Orleans Video Access Center, a local, they've been around since the 1980s, I believe. So, 1972, so in the 1970s, I'm gonna correct that. So NOVAC has been the primary workforce training institution in the state. They've since branched out to other areas, and they work really great with HBO and Warner Brothers and other partners that they have. But we got them together with the IATSE, which governs our below the line, to come up with a 1-year intensive training so that we can start replenishing our crew and bringing crew. What's the number? The 2 questions we get asked the most:
What?
Crew,
2,000?
and stages. So we really have to meet those demands. This fund has enabled us to do that. We've also done some very forward-thinking investments as well. We partnered with LSU, who's building a digital filmmaking curriculum, which will include those wonderful LED screens that are being used in the industry nowadays. How many of you guys are fans of The Mandalorian? So they're able to import locations directly into a soundstage, and LSU has been partnering with some of the key technology providers in that sector to establish a curriculum, which I think will be unique anywhere in the United States. So they're currently building the stage and bringing in all the equipment, and they'll start training our young people on the future of filmmaking. We've done a partnership with the Louisiana Film Prize. How many of you guys have participated with the prize? The Film Prize. We were able to partner with those guys and LaFia to expand their offerings from a geographically area of the state to the entire state, but more importantly, Film Prize Junior, which has started to put their efforts towards training middle school and high school kids on filmmaking. I encourage every child, every young person that I talk to get a college education. It's something that you're going to value for the rest of your life, but quite frankly, in the film industry, you don't need it. You just don't. So being able to have access to that workforce and education component, the Film Prize is doing some of those things, some wonderful things, and you'll see more and more as that gets going. We've partnered recently, we did a partnership with Loyola to help them beef up some of their film equipment training opportunities. Nichols State University, who was of course down in the Houma Thibodeau area that was impacted by Ida, they're putting together a film program. I'm sure I'm missing somebody, but just wonderful things that we're able to engage this fund, these monies, it's a significant amount of money, into workforce and education. Well,
Question.
yes, sir.
Do you partner with any individual production companies in the state?
It's not out of the question. We can definitely talk. It's, you know, education and workforce training. We've partnered mostly with nonprofits or our institutions of higher ed. There's certain caveats that we put in the rules so that, you know, you have to have the experience in it. Because again, we want these dollars to have the most impact where they have. So not out of the question. So again, the Novak IATSE, they've done some good things. They did Film Industry 101, which is just your basics, right? What's some of the terminology? What does this mean? What does that mean? Grip and Electric, they did a Grip and Electric here in New Orleans, did one in Baton Rouge, PAs, craft services, costume. I'm ready for the production accounting program because as a numbers-based program, we need good production accountants. I know it's boring, but you gotta have them. It's the most organized and best way for a production to maximize their credits and eliminate that time gap. What takes our CPAs the longest is trying to get information from an independent production because they're so focused on filmmaking and getting the film made that sometimes things like receipts and accounting fall by the wayside.
It costs them an
I
animal.
take issue with one thing you said, Chris.
Uh-oh.
You know I respect everything you said.
Uh-huh.
Production accounting is not always boring. No, I'm not. I was in the office at HBO, and we were making a film called Volunteers Shooting in Mexico. And the phone rang. Almost everyone was gone, but I'm screaming for my boss because I got the call. The production accountant was sitting in Mexico with a gun at his head because someone wanted to be paid for something they had delivered that we couldn't use in the shoot. So, you know, you never
I can't top that one. I can't top that one. But it's not one of, you know, it's certainly no guns to your heads, so don't get further deterred. We just need more and more accountants. So there's plenty of opportunities for those folks that you know really are organized and enjoy numbers. I enjoy numbers. I mean what's that now?
Accountants have it hard in this business.
They do have it hard. They can make or break a production, literally, when it comes down to incentives. I mean, deal with it every day. Just some more of our partners. I forgot to mention the Cool Cooperative. They did a small thing to ramp up. Cool is really interesting in that they provide after-school training for at-risk youth in the city. They're wonderful. Yeah, they sent me a video, and I told Kirby, I said, "Don't you know it's a state law that you can't make me cry?" It was such a touching video on what they put together and the impact that this small investment that the state has made with these guys. It's just wonderful. It's great things, you know, getting young people off the streets and into making them realize that, hey, there are opportunities, and the film industry and the music industry and the entertainment industries are vibrant in this state. Some of our higher ed partners that do some career training programs that I mentioned earlier, we have, you know, all across the state, UNO, Grambling, Tech, Loyola, they all want to be part of this. So as best as we can put the word out so that they can start training in the entertainment industries, you know, we're working towards that sustainability. Another thing that we did in 2017 is Qualified Entertainment Company. It was recognized that, you know, production is wonderful, but we want to really capture all of the entertainment industry. We want to capture the back office jobs, the post-production jobs, the visual effects jobs. We want to encourage local companies like Swaybox and The Ranch. Swaybox is an animation company that's expanding in our state. Started in Shreveport, ended up in the New Orleans area down in Harahan, doing some wonderful things. They've got 2 deals with the major studios that are just going to be off the charts cool, Paramount and Warner Brothers. So you're going to see some really, really amazing things coming out of that. And of course, the ranch, which is in St. Bernard Parish, they're able to expand their hiring, their crew, their employees. What we recognized was that we needed to provide a credit directly to the company to hire Louisiana residents. And that's what QEC does. It's 15 up to 20% based upon the average wage or the annual wage that you give to an individual. It's low threshold of entry. 5 new jobs have to be created. If you're looking at starting a company in the state of Louisiana, talk to me first, because it's always easier to go from 0 to 5 than from 5 to 10, 10 to 15, and so forth. We also wanted to provide some certainty for the company, so we can give that for up to 5 years with a 5-year renewal. We want these companies to grow. We want them to go beyond 5. And again, this is to capture all aspects of the value stream. We want distribution companies, visual effects, editing, et cetera, et cetera. Anybody that's a service provider that may not qualify for the typical film incentive, which is a little more lucrative, but it enables those back office jobs, accountants, payroll, HR, et cetera, et cetera. And it's really broadly written because we can go after any company really engaged in development or distribution of audio, video, or both audio, visual, and entertainment products. So that's that. There we go. So we just put together kind of some highlights.
Good choice. Come on, let's go.
That's us. That's just tip of the iceberg. I mean, that really is just a little bit of what we do in the state, and especially in the city of New Orleans. Again, more stuff that's coming out. You'll see Home Team, Mona Lisa, and what's that, Blood Moon, Where the Crawdads Sing. That's a big one that's coming up. We were able to pull that one out of North Carolina, I think. Where the Crawdads, Red, White, and Water, Crater, 65. So a lot of good stuff. This is the team. You're going to see a lot more coming from us in the near future. We've been working on a really revamped website, an overall look and feel to what we're doing. A lot more interactivity, a lot more video assets and things like that that we hope to launch in late March. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Well, we're gonna have to, well, I guess I don't want anybody to catch what I'm getting over, so that's what this is all about, but hopefully nobody will. But how overall do our tax credit set up, how does that compare to other states?
Yeah,
It always seems to be a hot button issue.
It is.
Legislative session, they're talking about, decreasing it, the amount that producers are gonna be getting. Where do we stack up as far as against other states?
We're probably still one of the top 5 destinations in the world. I mean, we have been doing this since 2002, so there's a lot of stability and certainty in our program. It is something that we have to periodically go before the legislature with Trey's help, with Carroll's help, with the entire, part of my role is to provide that information to our legislature, to provide them with the great things that we're doing. The next chance that we get to do that, it will be in 2023. The program does have a sunset date, but all of our programs have sunset dates. This one's July 1 of 2025, meaning that we just can't accept applications after that date. So we're confident.
Talk more about that.
Yeah, that'll be Trey's forte.
As far as like using the LPO and local music, is there any incentive as far as, do you guys have any incentive programs as far as that goes? As far as
We encourage, the more they use locally and source locally, the bigger return they get.
Okay,
So we do know that they use the LPO. They've used Jay Weigel on several things to score over at Misha's place at Esplanade. So the more that they do here, the bigger the tax benefit. Good question. Anything else?
I got
Yes.
kind of a different question. So Hollywood decides they want to come to Louisiana, and they realize that what they need, whether it be crew or studio or whatnot, is not there. What's the state's involvement? What's the private involvement to basically make that next step happen?
We'll work with them to try to find whatever locations they need. Carol can probably speak more to that as to because we really rely on our local partners and allies like the city of New Orleans. If there's an unavailable purpose-built stage, they'll go to a warehouse locally. So we'll engage. A unique, I don't want to say unique, but what's happening right now across the industry, everywhere you go, is there's no crew or stages. There's just so much production being pushed through that it's insanely busy and great. But we'll help them find adequate space. But most of the productions that are coming here are location driven. So finding them locations is key. And then stages fall in, and Trey and Carol both can speak to more to that, because I know.
I was involved with one production in New Orleans. They flew a whole crew out and put them up here from California.
And I've heard that several times.
This location.
And that's been going on since the 90s.
Yeah.
They can't find this person or that person, and so they bring them in, and that's,
Yeah.
We go to these things all the time, we hear these things, and we want to know, okay, we've been at point A since the 70s, how do we get to point B and C? And it's obviously not up to the government to solve that problem.
Right.
But how do we, how does the government help, and then how does the private
I can
sector?
answer
Well,
that question.
yeah.
I can explain.
Yeah.
We're actually a DRE, so we're not at A or B anymore. But I'm sorry, I didn't.
No, I'm trying to get it to Z.
I know, me too.
We're trying to get us beyond that. So, but.
Yeah. So I'm Carol Morton. I am the film director or the film commissioner for the City of New Orleans and the Mayor's Office of Cultural Economy. I've been in the film office since 2009, and I've been the film director for almost 4 years, and it's a dream job for me. I love my job. I love what I do. I love every day, no matter how long or hard it is. And I love where we are in the film industry, and I love what I've seen that has grown over the years. Every single film that you saw a clip of, except for one, came through the New Orleans Film Office. But one of the things, because we're kind of like where you left it off, which I think is really important. Some of those productions didn't shoot one location inside of the city of New Orleans. So the New Orleans Film Office is the film office that most often, if somebody wants to shoot in Louisiana or they want to shoot in this region or in New Orleans, they'll reach out to the New Orleans Film Office. We don't always have every location, like Chris said. Pretty much everything is location driven. One night in Miami, who I worked with extensively, had just a great experience with, did not shoot one location inside of the city of New Orleans. But I worked very hard to bring every production in, knowing they're all not going to shoot here. Palmer, which shot exclusively on the Northshore, as far as I'm aware, did not shoot one location in the city of New Orleans. Oh, they did? They did. Okay, well.
One night in Miami did all their boxing.
Oh, yeah, right. They did
So
do that. Yeah.
Shot in the ring was stage one.
Yeah.
But you didn't lie.
Yeah, I didn't
locations.
lie. Like, no locations, right? I didn't lie. I don't ever lie. So, but what I'm saying is, it's a great experience because we have so much production in the city of New Orleans. To see how much production that we are able to bring in that can also shoot in our region. I mean, I just worked with somebody on a film, and they're going to primarily be shooting in St. Francisville, and I send them there. If they're asking for a location, and we've gotten really good at this, we're like, we don't have that, but call them, or I'll get you a location manager that will take you over there. So it's really important that we support the whole region. We need the region. New Orleans isn't very big. We only have a certain amount of locations. We have great locations, but we need more. Everybody doesn't come to the city to shoot New Orleans locations. The Will Smith film has never shot one location inside of the city of New Orleans. Our production office there is a lot of time production offices are located in the city of New Orleans, but they don't always shoot. But primarily those projects at least shot a bit. Very proud of the work that we did. I recognize the permitting that we did on some of those locations, and it's really exciting to see your work and the work that we've done to work with the industry. So to talk about, to move on to what we actually do, obviously we take in a lot of productions. We talk to a lot of producers. We talk to a lot of, our location managers. We have a local team of right now 86 people that work in film locations in New Orleans. We probably have about, maybe 15 really top location managers who also help to bring in projects as well. But, we have about 86, and that's growing. We need more locations teams. So location team can be 10 or 12 people. So it's a lot of people on each production. Currently, we have 18 productions that are either in pre-production. All major studios are all represented there. That are either in pre-production, they're shooting, or they will be shooting probably in the next 30 days or so if they don't push or reschedule. So how do we support the industry in terms of crew, vendors, resources, stages? So when we get those calls, we provide vendor lists and crew lists as we have them to those productions. A lot of times the productions will wait for crew because, we have about 2,000, I say, union members in the city of New Orleans, but we need more. Training crew is a really big priority for the Film New Orleans office. I'll talk about that in a minute. But we provide them the information. We provide them to the extent that we know availability of the stages. We always supply a list of contact information because that can be a fluid situation. And we find that because, like Chris said, every production hub, which New Orleans is a production hub in the United States, and I'm talking the region of New Orleans. In the United States. So we're the fourth major production hub behind Atlanta. So that would be Los Angeles, New York, Atlanta, us. I check that data the end of the year. It looks like we're holding on as the fourth major production hub. And so what that means is that we have a depth of crew, we have a depth of infrastructure, and we have incredible tax credits. We also have very friendly state and local governments that work really hard to facilitate the productions, to answer their questions, to help to make connections when they need that. There's a lot of entry points for the film industry, and government can provide a very broad entry point for them. It can be like a really great starting point. They don't always end up with us, but a lot of times they can enter the industry with us. And I think New Orleans is known to people. They don't, as I said, don't always end up right on within our very small parish, but they do end up in the region. That's critically important to us because we're growing this as regional with our regional partners. So what does the film office do? Obviously, we do a lot of initial intake. We do a lot of communication. We work very closely with our locations team because we permit all films inside of Orleans Parish and also every single location. We facilitate the locations, meaning that we help to do whatever, facilitate it in any other way. We also do what I think is probably the most critical thing is we manage community impact. And so we communicate with the community. We take in every single complaint. We work very directly with the locations team. In a very small city where productions move out and other productions move in, that is a really critical piece of this that people feel like they're communicated with. We establish all film policy for the city of New Orleans, which is a beautiful thing because it can be fluid. As the industry changes, impacts change, they increase, they decrease, we can really change what those policies are, but it's really important that we have a set of policies because as great as the industry is and the major studios are, they're not always our friend. They are often our friend, but they're not always the friend of the community. And so it's very important to find that space between facilitating them and then protecting your communities because that's what you really represent.
And if I can jump in,
Yeah.
Carroll does this better than anyone because one of the things you have to look at is you're taking a manufacturing and you're taking it out of the manufacturing plant and you're putting it into a neighborhood. Right? And so all of those things that happen way off in a plant are now happening in a community. And what we try and what Carroll does, and she does this amazingly for us too at Second Line, is you have to reinforce to your clients that you're guests here.
Yes.
Right? Even though that you're here, you're employing people and we're extracting that benefit, you're guests. And that's been one of the strongest messages that's gone out of the film office too, and it's one that we have to stand by because we want this to continue. And Carroll has, I don't think Carroll's being very modest about the amount of fires that she has to put out on a daily basis. Imagine that your phone has to be on 24/7 because there's actual filming happening every second of every hour of every day in the city. Because you have some shows that have 6 o'clock a.m. calls and they film till 8 o'clock at night. You have other shows that have 6 p.m. calls that are filming till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock the next morning. So there's always some cause for alarm, especially between the hours of 8 p.m. and 5 a.m. But I just wanted to say that's a big thrust of what Carroll does, and we've been the beneficiaries of her hard efforts and works engaging with the community because a lot of people don't understand what's going on.
Would you say that it has to do with people being mindful of their surroundings? Like a lot of times, because I was thinking about what you were talking about when you take that factory and move it into that community. The complaints are going to come from the people that live there, whether the parking situation changes or now there's noise that's normally not there and they're trying to sleep and you're doing an overnight shoot and you're yelling and fake gunshots go up, pow, pow, and fall out the bed. You're like, what's going on?
But
Put those fires out.
it's because it doesn't become a fire if you deal with it going into the production. So one of the things in our office that we do is that we're very proactive, and so the location managers and conversations that we have with the producers are the film office determines your fate. When you take the factory, I love that metaphor, and you're taking it outside where you're utilizing city streets. You are impacting families and people who are trying to put their kids to bed so they can take them to school the next day. The city of New Orleans has a lot of neighborhoods that don't have off-street parking. So you're taking their parking away, which you have a right to do, which I explain to people all the time. We own the street, you don't own the street. But that being said, let me hear your problem, and I think I can solve it. but you don't own the street. Let's start with that. So we have a right to do it, but we also care that, you know, the production's outside and they're keeping the kids up. I mean, I've left my house at 10:30 at night and gone out to a film set. I've gone out at night and cut down signs because they, you know, shouldn't have had them up. I mean, like, I don't put up with it stuff. And that's the message that you send both to your community, is that we're responsive, that we are permitting the productions, we do bring them in, but they don't have a right to abuse our community. And then, you know, like Trey said, people have to come back in. We got to film in those locations yet again. If we never film in that location, it doesn't matter, because we also want to minimize the disruption. So we've put probably the most resources that we have in the film office in streamlining permitting, managing permitting. We approve all the truck parking, so we can move the trucks where we think they should be, not where the production does. We approve all the street closures. We approve pretty much everything that happens on a film set. We want to know where the condors go. Like, you got condors, where are they? Don't have them bothering people. So we get documents and we ask for all that information on all of the schematics that they send us. So you want to know everything you're doing. If you're closing the street, why are you closing the street? What are you doing in the street? Because you don't ask that question, that can really burn you. Because people will do all kinds of crazy things in the street, right? It's unimaginable.
We have parades in the
street.
street.
Yeah, we have parades in the street. Right. Yeah.
Come with your belt, like the
Yeah.
Get your behind out the street and sit over there on the curb.
Yeah. It's like you don't ask the questions to your peril.
Well, think about the logistics behind all that. You shut down a street, you got to provide an alternate route.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What Carol also didn't
They do.
mention is that there's a middle ground that you have to play.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be very aware of what the residents and making sure that the productions are doing with it, but you also have to make sure that the citizens are not gouging the production.
Overreacting.
One person can overreact and cause a multi-million-dollar loss of a production because they did everything they needed and somebody just decided they wanted to be a asshole.
Right.
Period.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
it's a very
Said somebody like me to go see that.
well.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a balance, right? You have to protect your community first and foremost, but you also have to be an advocate for the industry, and sometimes that puts you in a very awkward predicament.
Often it does, yeah.
But thankfully for Carol.
Yeah. But I also think it's really important when you're managing this that you bring that kind of mentality to it. Is that in my approach is there's an answer somewhere inside of between the production and between the community. There is always an answer. It's not always obvious, but we have done this long enough that we know what the answers could possibly be. All major cities have this problem. So with the amount of filming that you host inside of a major city, and I've researched, I've looked at other cities and see how they handle the problem. I think we do a stellar job of handling the problem. And I think a lot of it is like loving and commitment to your own community, but also loving the industry too. We understand you need the shot, but maybe we could shoot it differently. And being very proactive. And so we communicate with the communities. I mean, we send out flyers, the location managers fly everywhere they're filming, and we have, rules and regulations around the flyers. We approve the flyers, we'll have them put additional information in the flyers, and we send those flyers, distribute them through city council offices and neighborhood associations every day between 5 and 6. So everybody gets as much communication as they can. So the other thing that we do, and is probably closest to my heart, is we do workforce training. We took a pause when that incredibly generous funding came from Chris's office and that program. But we've been partnering with NOVAC, and we do workforce training programs since about 2004. We will be funding additional workforce training programs, and we usually do somewhere between 5 and 7, depending on the funding that we have available. This year, we're planning to do 2 locations trainings because we really need experienced locations people. The other thing, and I think that we're finding in the industry, just as a comment on that, is that we have a lot of people entering the industry and working on a lot of teams, and they don't really have enough training or experience. So the film office is going to provide that through, training programs. So people are doing a better job at managing our locations. So we will be sponsoring that this year. We'll see going forward. But one of the most critical things that we can do as a city, as a state, what we can support, the support that Chris also gives for the university systems as well, is to train crew. Because that is probably one of the greatest benefits that we have with this growing industry, that we can train young people, like Chris said, who don't have a college degree necessarily, who don't know how to do anything particularly, and don't know anything about the film industry, and we can train you for a lifetime career. And that also helps to support our industry. And then one of the most exciting things about this industry is the opportunity it provides to young people. And I also, the other things that we do, we also advise the city on a number of issues on proposals and economic investment or economic opportunities, also on the film tax credits as well. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Can you explain to me kind of how the money that comes in New Orleans, how the regional stuff works? So let's say, I don't know what the New Orleans area did, but how that impacts the areas around New Orleans as well and the rest of the state?
Okay, thanks for that question. That's a great question. So the state calculates numbers differently than the New Orleans Film Office does, and Chris has schooled me on this.
Yeah, we from a statewide perspective and a programmatic perspective, we are required by law to do an economic impact analysis every 2 years. The last one we released was in 2021, and for every tax credit that we issued, $6 roars through the state of Louisiana's economy. So that's a multiplier effect of 6 to 1. So every dollar that we invest, $6 goes back into the community, to local businesses, to the entire state as far as economic impact. It supports over 10,000 jobs, but that's just a window of what we look at based upon the numbers that we receive through the program.
If I can give an example of that, there was a production manager who paid his crew per diem in $2 bills. Because the little town they were working in had a problem with, we don't want all these strangers here. So he paid everybody in $2 bills. Those $2 bills showed up in every business in town, the church collection plate, and everything else. And the attitude completely changed.
Absolutely, yeah. So when you think about a 6 to 1 return, that's pretty.
It sounds like y'all need to invest more then.
I don't know.
This is a segue for me to jump in.
Trey can jump into that one.
I honestly think ours is closer to 12 to 1, but I know how it's measured and understand they don't get it. But Los Angeles is 16 to 1. And so I truly believe that the impact in Louisiana is closer to 12 to 1 than 6.
Well, let's talk about the program and the ROI and what it looks like and the advocacy piece of it, right? So my name is Trey Burvant. I am president of Louisiana Film Entertainment Association, which was established about over a decade ago to be the voice of the film industry and to represent everyone who's a part of it in Baton Rouge. So basically, we defend the tax credits, in short. But we also do more than that. I also, I was raised here, I left here, I came back after Katrina, and was lucky enough to meet Susan Brennan, and we built Second Line Stages, which is the first green independent film studio in the country. And we were the first real purpose-built stage in the state. We've been around for 10 years. And you talk about, where we are, A, B, and C, what do we have, what do they ask for? They ask for crews and stages. We're presently driving piles to have an additional 90,000 square feet of stages to come online in a year to meet the demand of what's happening. So there's that piece. So I've also been an independent producer, here in the States, so I've kind of had my fingers in many pies. But when it comes down to the tax credit, remember the credits, everything, what Chris said it best, their job is to create opportunities for Louisiana residents. Another extended definition of economic impact and what LED does is that they're supposed to create what isn't here, right? Importing money, right? Bringing opportunities that exist elsewhere and bringing it so that the state can benefit from it here. And that's a critical piece that I like to use about that importing of money, right? If Ellie didn't do what they did, if we didn't have the credit, then more than likely we would probably still attract a considerable amount of film and television production, but not to the scale that we have now. And that's okay, right? Because if you look at our entire country, so many industries are built off of tax incentives and tax breaks and exemptions and exclusions and all kinds of stuff. That's how we work. And so, but what I love about our industry is that I don't see very many incentive programs that create the amount of jobs that we do, right? We work in an industry that cannot be replaced by an automated machine, right? Yes, digital technology is advancing, right? But you show me the robot that's gonna coil 50 feet of cable and hump it over, right, a cow pasture and put it in the back of a 53-foot truck. It ain't gonna happen. So that's another thing about our industry is that we are not gonna be downsized like that. It's always gonna have human beings, always, always, always. You hear about big, and I'll go after them, chemical plants that come into our state and other places, and they tout, job creation stuff. We know there's construction jobs, and then there's the 5 or 6 people or 20 people that, monitor the computers. And that's fine. It is what it is, but we're not here to talk about that. All right, tax credit. Our program's been around, is one of the first, 1999, early 2000s was when the first glimmers of the credit program came into play. The first, a couple of years, 5 to 6 years before Katrina, it was a really nascent, fledgling industry, rife with all kinds of players. It was the Wild West and fraud and, making stuff up and producers buying cars, and getting tax credits for it. Katrina happened. One of the benefits of Katrina is that it pushed production up north, and that's where Shreveport came online and had a good run for about 7 to 8 years. Over time, these programs have to be evaluated, and we do a really good job of that, as Chris mentioned. Our program is never, right, it's just because you have a program doesn't mean it's always there forever. It's never, unless, but the longer you're around, the more people get accustomed to it being part of, the business, part of Louisiana. And the film industry is there. 2015, our tax credit program took a huge hit. We had someone running for president. Our governor was running for president, and basically threw us out to the wolves. And we hit a moment where our program got capped. Before that, our program was, you could come down here, and we would, you come down here, we'll spend as much money as we want. We'll give you as much money as you want. So we got capped. It disrupted our industry. We fought hard against it, but the politics did not go in our favor. 2 years later, and after 2 very long years between 2015 and 2017, and Chris was part of this, I was part of this, we came back and we reformed our program to tailor it to really what the state of Louisiana economy could handle and what made more sense. So when you talk about return on investment, when you talk about 6 to 1, 12 to 1, 16 to 1, all of that is relative to the scale of the economy you're in. Right? In California, they don't give tax credits for their actors, right? So that increases some of their ROI potential, right? Their tax credit program is smaller, so it increases that ROI. And all of those numbers work, right, in relationship to each other. So we reformed our program, which is the program we live under now. And it's one of the, it's probably, in my estimation, and I've looked and studied a lot of these, and Chris has too, and so has Carroll, it's the smartest program. Mm-hmm. It really is. Because what we take into account is when we went back, and I've been part of the legislative committee and a lot of forming. So the program that you saw up here, myself and Chris and a lot of other stakeholders, it's got our fingerprints all over it. And we did that because we wanted it to come from our industry, not from somebody in California telling us what to do. Because if they had their druthers, right, then they would just want it wide open again. And we're like, no, we have to create a responsible, predictable program. One that takes into account, how do we stay competitive with other states? How do we create the most amount of jobs? And how do we give the best bang for the buck for the taxpayer? And so when you come to ROI, right, that is what we look at. And ROI can mean a great number of things. A lot of people want to look at, well, what is the taxes that you collect, right? Well, that's just a very myopic viewpoint. But the $6, I think it's $6.15, I think, that's the true, that is what, GMPs are, that's how they calculate that, for gross national products of countries in our country, right? It's an economic analysis. So what does LFEA do? We are here to advocate for the tax credit program and all of the positive benefits it brings to Louisiana residents and small businesses and storytellers. That's what we do. So I spend a lot of time. I never thought I'd spend as much time that I would in the state capitol. I never thought in my life I would have to lobby and do all of the things that we've done, but we do it because there's a lot at stake. One of the things we did when we reformed the program in 2017 was that we put a sunset date on it, right? And sunset dates are there only as a reminder to just kind of, hey, let's check up on this. Let's see how this program's doing. Well, that would be great, but unfortunately, we are statutorily required to put a report every 2 years. We're the only industry in the state that's required to put an economic analysis report every 2 years. That's it. Yes.
Why are we required to do that?
Because it was part of the deal that we made in 2017 when we reformed the program. And it was because in 2015, listen, there was a lot of, we talked about accounting, there was a lot of bad actors that we had done. You remember the deal with the Saints and the tax credits and a lot of these studio things. We had a lot of folks that came in from out of state that were really trying to game the system and really, messed us up bad. And one of the things we did, and under really Chris's department's direction too, is that we made this program as bulletproof as we could. And I'm pretty happy to say that I don't think there's been next to zero amount of fraud since 2017. I mean, there's people pushing through and trying to claim things on, but we audit. We have one of the most robust audit processes. And that audit is critical, because if you're not auditing, if you're not looking at the numbers, then that's where people will slide in the car, the this, the that. So that sunset is now upon us. It's in 2025. And some of you might remember that LFEA, in conjunction with LED, said, well, let's get ahead of this. Let's try, because our clients plan 2-3 years ahead. And so they need predictability and stability. They want to make sure that they can, if they go to Louisiana and they establish themselves and they have a television show, that they can continue to work and operate in that jurisdiction. And so we wanted to make sure that we could get ahead of this and maybe extend our credits. So we went into Baton Rouge. We had a really good plan. Senator Sharon Hewitt, who represents the great city of Slidell, was the author of our bill. We went in there. We had several provisions that we were trying to accomplish, none of them which increased the burden to the state, right? It just made it better. And we got all the way to the House floor. We were successful in the committees. We were successful in the Senate. We got to the House floor, and we got caught in a really nasty political game between some high-ranking politicians. And when we realized that, we pulled our bill and said, we're done. And it was very unfortunate, without getting into the details of it. But so what does it mean for us now? So we have a film tax credit program that expires in 2025. So every 2 years is the opportunity for legislators to evaluate and do any types of tax reforms or fiscal. It's called a fiscal session, right? This next session coming up is just a regular session. They can't deal with any type of tax policy or anything that has to do with the budget unless they call a special session, which could happen. And so we have to now go in with 2 years, right, at our backs and make sure that our program can continue into the future. We all know about the streaming wars. We all know what COVID did. We all know that there's billions and billions of dollars in content because these studios are racing to get their libraries stocked full, right? I mean, Netflix has a lot of shows, but they ain't that great. And they don't have, they've got to either go buy a library, right? Because, and so they're leading that charge. They're spending a lot of money. Apple's spending a lot of money, and the landscape has changed. So from an advocacy perspective, from what we have to do now, and now I'm speaking to you as what is our plan here, folks? What is our plan as stakeholders in the film industry in many capacities for going into 2023? Well, Jason, who is with the ranch, couldn't be here today. He's quarantining. He got a little COVID scare in his household, and he would have been great to have here to kind of bounce a lot of this off, because he and I have worked very closely together in LFEA. After that session in June, Jason's like, we got to go out and raise a shitload of money, right? We've been an advocacy group, an industry trade group for over 10 years. We got a budget of like $125,000. It barely pays for our representation in Baton Rouge. We get out there, we do a lot of work, boots on the ground. Our executive committee is made up of 23 industries, studios, vendors, government groups. Carroll is an executive member of our board. And we said, we've got to really go after this now. This is more than ever in the history of our program do we have to go out and really do what we need to do. So I'm happy to say that we've gotten commitment. So we went out to a lot of big stakeholders, studios from LA too, vendors, and said we've got to put a lot of money together. We need to come up with a very rigorous campaign, because here are the things that we're lacking. One, we're lacking real numbers. And when I say real numbers, Chris puts out numbers, but they're the broad strokes. They're the economic broad strokes. Whenever we go into a Senate committee or a House committee and we have to testify, and I'm sitting in front of a panel of 13 or 12 or whatever it is, legislators, senators, and they ask me why they should take $200 million or $180 million from the Louisiana taxpayer, which could go into our roads and bridges. Why should I give it to you? Right? And we have to defend that. Those are the kinds of questions we get. Now, they can't just go and grab the $180 million and put it into bridges and anything, because they don't understand how the program works. That money is not there. That money is already accounted for. They ask things like, well, they want to hear from, the florist. They want to hear from the restaurant. They want to hear from the hotel, from the landlord, from the church, from the community, where these dollars are spent. So one of the things that we're going to do, and just so to date, we've raised almost $600,000. And we've raised that in a month. And that money is going to be divided over the next 2 years. So this year in 2022, it's all about R&D, R&D, R&D. We're going to go out there and we're going to do targeted polling in areas that are soft, right? Where there might be a legislator who's experienced a lot of filming activity in his district, but he doesn't quite get it yet. Let's talk about Madisonville, Louisiana. We're going to go and we're going to reach out and get that empirical data. We have a UPM that is going to take a break from line producing, and she is going to help us go out and get these stories and allocate. Like you said, there's a map that has all of the stars of where people filmed. Well,
Over 3,000 movies have been made in Louisiana.
Yes, 3,000. So we want to go into those communities and pull that data, right? Mm-hmm. And locations, right? The stats follow locations, right? They follow set deck and construction, right? I mean, If you've never been on a set when they're building a big set, you'll understand, right? I have a project, a Netflix project on our stages right now that has already spent, $800,000 in just lumber. And they spent that money in 3 months. It's like those, and that lumber might have come from the lumber yards locally in New Orleans, but they also got that lumber from the mill in Alexandria. And those are the kind of connections we want to make, because there's not a lot of filming in Alexandria. And so we're going to be putting money into that. We're going to be getting some more representation in Baton Rouge, some more advocacy there, right? And it's also about education. It's about educating your legislators. It's about going out picking up the phone, writing an email, finding out who represents you, and talking to them, finding them, saying, hey, my name's Trey, I work in the film industry, it's really important to me, this is my story, right? That's how it really matters, and that's some of the things we're going to be encouraging too over the next year, right? Finding opportunities to advocate, because that's our story and that's what we have to tell. It's a daunting process. And so we're going to be putting those resources. We're going to be doing a lot more literature, a lot more filming, a lot more stories, right? We're the film industry. We should have the best commercials ever. But we also work, right? We work. I've got a full-time job, and Jason's got a full-time job, and Carol's got a full-time job. And so we do this because we care about our industry, and we care, and the stakes are just too high. And we want everybody to know that. And we want to do this work, and we need everybody's help. And look, it might just be show up at Baton Rouge, right? Susie's been a presence at the Capitol for us, right? I mean, when we go there to advocate, it can be daunting, but it's necessary. So with that, if there's any, that was just kind of like a broad stroke, but that's where we're going in terms of legislation. And the idea is that we're going to extend that sunset or get rid of it. We'll see where we are in 2023, because you got to read the tea leaves a little bit. You got to read what's the political climate, and it always changes. It always changes. But it's not. Listen, we overwhelmingly have a positive outlook. People look positively on our industry. They really truly do.
Yeah.
They truly do. But when you have 3-4 people, right? That one neighbor you talked about that could send away a movie. Well, two really articulate, charismatic politicians can also shit-can your entire bill. So we've got to work hard to reach out, and that's what I do mainly. Just so you know what I do, is that I go out in the next year, I'm going to be calling, driving all over the state of Louisiana, meeting with those legislators that don't know us. Right? Yes.
What do you have to offer them? That's the question. I've done my share of lobbying as well. Going different to legislators' offices, and buttonholing them out on the floor. And there's always the question that's, what's in it for me? What's in it for my people? What's in it for my district?
Jobs.
If there aren't, there are some rural parishes.
Sure, and look, we can't convert everybody, right? Listen, a great success story is that Leesville, right? There were 2 productions, both were at Second Line, and they needed to go out and they needed forest. They needed a small town courthouse, and they went out. So 65, the Adam Driver vehicle that's going to be coming out soon. They went out to Kisatchie National Forest and spent 3 weeks out there filming. All right, not just 3 weeks filming, but they also spent 2 months building sets out there and preparing it. And if you talk, and now Senator Reese, huge fan now, huge fan. He gets it. Now he's an advocate for a lot of those Western Louisiana legislators, right? That's what you got to do. Another story, one of our most vehement adversaries a couple of years ago in 2015, then Senator Neil Reiser, hated us. And then Wolverine came into town. And Corey Parker and I got with a few people, and we got with Senator Reiser, and we made a set visit to Sicily Island. Long story short, he has a picture of himself with the gloves on. And that was it. But he it wasn't because of the gloves. He saw it. He saw it. Because the same argument I made in testimony about how the money circles around into the economy, right? He made the same argument about the oil patch.
Yep.
He's bringing people in, all the ancillary things that are coming.
Yes. So he had people from North Louisiana and South Louisiana. He had the farmer talking about how great it is that this company just paid me, $50,000 to grow 6 acres of corn that I don't need. I mean, so he saw, and his eyes opened up. And so that's what we do too. Set visit, set visit, set visit. Yes.
Well,
We're done?
Being a new Louisianian.
We got 3 minutes.
Being a new Louisianian, I am here to offer, if there's any way I can help you guys with anything you may need from me.
Quentin Ayers is the lead actor of The Blind Side.
Yes.
In case
Great film. Great film. You were great.
Well, look, we will be reaching out. I encourage you, if you're not on the LFEA email list, just go to lfea.org and sign up. We will be sending emails out,
And I want to offer something too. Movie Poster Archives, we have more than 1 million posters and other stuff in our archives. If you ever want to convince someone about the industry in their area, we can do a specific exhibit for them.
Yes.
We did one here 2 years ago that was really successful, and the one we have right now across the street that opens tonight is about the entire state. But we can do it in any area of the state.
That's great. Thank you. And we will be in touch about that. Yes, sir.
My other recommendation from a political standpoint is the Louisiana Municipal Association is mayors and council members that meet throughout the throughout the state, usually twice a year. And then there's another subgroup of that called the mid-sized cities, which Slidell is a part of. And we meet twice a year, and it would be great for you guys to come and talk about the film industry, because quite often a city council member will become a state representative or state senator. So you're planting the seed today for the person that's running in 2 years from now. And when we go to these Louisiana Municipal Association meetings, we have these type of seminars that say, what can we as the outside do to help you as the government employees bring jobs to your area?
That's great.
That's great.
And the biggest problem with all of the world's business is education.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. And one last thing, thank you for that, and I just wrote that down because that's very important. When we talk about ROI, I want to make sure that we bring in the 2% fund. Right? We bring in all of the work that's happening around. That 2% fund adds to the ROI, right? That we're going out and we're educating Louisiana students. I mean, the film programs at LSU and Lafayette and Tulane and Loyola are some of the highest enrolled classes, right? Dillard, I mean, all of it. So anyway, that's how that's part of the ROI.
And I also, as we're wrapping this out, want to mention that the funding that we provide for IATSE and workforce training comes out of the tourism industry fund. So that's funding that we receive that I believe I use all of that funding for community support. We don't use it for operational. We're not allowed to, nor would we, but all of that funding comes for that. So it's we have to really focus on what really brings the best value for the state. Yeah.
Great. I'll invite you. I went to the Naval Academy, and a lot of my classmates, especially Elaine Luria, is the federal senator, and she comes here a lot, and we have private dinners with a lot of politicians from the state when she comes into town. So I'll invite you.
Let's do it.
We'll sit down and talk.